Today we'll continue introduction of this topic. Next we'll have a quick recap of what we did, and then we'll look at the simple and purely infinite simple Leavitt path algebras. May not have time, but the purely infinite simple are the one which seem to be amenable, at least for certain types of graphs, as making isomorphism, and then determined by the propagative rules of that. So it's kind of a nice piece of work there. And we talk about that, at least we plant the seed of that idea by considering the D-monoid and the corresponding N-monoid. When we talk about the connections and comparisons to system algebra. Okay? Let me quickly have a hand-ready summary of what we did yesterday. We started with the definition of the path algebra, gave a set of examples, and we noted the Leavitt path algebra admits Z grading, so being a Z graded ring, and it also a ring with involution. And we noted that the Jacobson radical or Leavitt path algebra is zero, therefore there are no non-zero nilpotent one-sided ideas at all inside Leavitt path algebra. We also pointed out about 5 graph properties and showed how each of these graph properties give rise to interesting ring theoretical properties of the Leavitt path algebra. And I'm summarizing the whole thing that happened yesterday. And then Professor Kanuni talked about the ideal initial, some introduction to the ideal structure of a Leavitt path algebra. I just want to make one remark about how significant a couple of results that she pointed out. As we all kind of chatted about, Leavitt path algebra is highly non-commutative. In that context, it's really surprising that two-sided ideals they commute, and not only that, they exhibit properties of ideals. In other words, here is a huge non-commutative mother, and these ideal babies, they pretend they are ideals inside a commutative ring. And one of the first property that Professor Kanuni pointed out is that distributive property. The ideals in the Leavitt path algebra, they satisfy the distributive law, and also there are other indications of the behavior of the ideals here. So in that context, I just want to mention one significance of that result. Many of you may know in commutative algebra, we have this generalization of directed ring called proof domain. This is a really interesting class of commutative rings. One of the characterizing property of an integral domain, of the proof of domain, is that it's an integral domain that the ideals satisfy the distributive law. So it's one of the characterizing properties. So it's a surprising that Leavitt path algebra shared this property with a well-known commutative class of rings here. And indeed, the proof of domain has more than just some information about it, more than 100 characterizations for them. So I would like to, here is one project, anybody who is interested, look at all those various characterizations of proof of domains and see which one of them is valid in the context of Leavitt path algebra, or provide some conditions under which those conditions is valid for Leavitt path algebra. So it would be a great interesting project for that. Okay. Let me go along and talk about today's program here. Move on to this. Leavitt noted that the Leavitt ring, L, 1n, that's a ring which is isomorphic to n copies of itself, but not copies less than n number of copies. And he said it's a simple ring. So a natural question is, since we realize that as a Leavitt path algebra, under what conditions a Leavitt path algebra would be a simple ring? Straightforward question there. And just a quick example, we noted already that if you take a straight line graph, E, then the corresponding Leavitt path algebra is a simple ring because it is the ring of matrices over the field K. And likewise, if E is the R7, the graph with n roses, then of course we know it's isomorphic to the Leavitt ring, which Leavitt proved is a simple ring. So I already have some examples. Professor Muge, no need to mention that if I is a non-zero ideal, then the set of all vertices, I intersection here for 0, is a hereditary saturated subset of vertices here. And also, you mentioned Mogontune correspondence, at least in the row finite case, between ideals and the hereditary saturated subsets here. So if you're looking for the case where it's a simple ring, that is almost immediate, that if you don't want any non-zero ideals, then necessarily there cannot be any non-empty proper hereditary saturated substance in here. That certainly is a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. For instance, if you take for an example of the graph, the single vertex and the single loop here, we know the corresponding Leavitt path algebra. As a graphically, you notice that the only hereditary saturated, there's only one vertex. So the hereditary saturated subsets are empty subset and the set containing V. But this is not simple because it's an integral domain. You can see that if you take any polynomial, lots of them, which have a non-zero constant term, they will generate an ideal, particular the polynomial one process generates. So this is not a sufficient condition, so we need an extra condition. One reason why there are more ideals is that the cycle has no exit there. So that was pointed out in a paper by Mr. says that if he is an arbitrary graph, then the Leavitt path algebra is a simple ring if and only if the entire vertex set an empty set or the only hereditary saturated subsets. In addition, every cycle must have an exit. This is what we call yesterday a condition out here. Sometimes the condition that E equals 0 and empty set are the only hereditary set is also called cofinal. As you see, you may be using that word because that is equivalent to another graph property. I don't want to go into that here. Bill Leavitt not only showed that the Leavitt ring L of 1, n is a simple ring, it also has an extra property there. The property being that if you consider as a left module, then every non-zero Dirac summing contains a proper isomorphic Dirac summing. So there are lots of Dirac summing inside the section ring in here. And this property is what is called purely infinite simple property here. Okay? So formally, we could define a ring with identity to be purely infinite simple. If it is simple and every non-zero left ideal contains a non-zero idempotent E, which splits as a sum of two other orthogonal idempotents, say F and G, such that the left ideal generated by E or E is isomorphic to RF here. In this case, E is called an infinite idempotent. This is the idea that we talked about yesterday also, the directly finite, directly infinite properties here. And the purely infinite simple algebras, they are the one among, in the first attempt, always you want to classify one of the important fundamental problems when you start to study an algebra, how to classify it up to isomorphism, something there is here. And purely infinite simple, there are path algebras and some consideration, they are amenable to such a class. So they turn out to be an important class 11 path algebras here. And the Brockley groups can be computed easier, and they turn out to be a good isomorphic invariant. So again, how to characterize them, then they will show that another path algebra is purely infinite simple, if and only, of course, it has to be a simple ring first. In addition, it must contain a cycle, because acyclic simple ring, they are not, because they're matrix rings and they cannot deal with infinity. So you need an existence of a cycle over there. And that, of course, graphically, that means that easy one, empty set of only hereditary subsets, that must be one cycle, and every cycle must have an exit. And so this presents a kind of a dichotomy for simple level path algebras, those coming from graphs with cycles and those coming from graphs without cycles. So the only simple ring coming from graphs without cycles, of course, are matrix rings of finite order. You look at that. And so the simple path algebra, either it is isomorphic to matrix rings of finite order, or it is purely infinite simple. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the ideas leading up to the Brockley integrals here. So we talk about the V monoid. Call that just a quick recall, bear with me. P is a finitely generated projective module, means that there is another module Q, so that the Jackson Q is an isomorphic n copies of for some, again, there's a typo here, some n in that capital there. Of course, R itself is an R to the n. Additional examples are, if F is an idempotent, then the rectangular RF is always a projective module because it is a direct summand of that R. And graphically, every path P gives rise to a projective module because P times P star, P times P star is an idempotent, therefore this is a direct summand of the algebra, and therefore is projective there. Okay. Let VR denote the isomorphism classes of finitely generated projective, let us say, modules. Then we define an operation among the isomorphism classes of finitely generated projective modules. We look like this involved square bracket P, for instance. We define the operation plus by saying that the class of P plus class of Q is the class of P direction Q. This makes it an abelian monoid, only to single with a zero element here. And some quick example, if R is a field, then the V monoid of R is simply, because every finite projective is free, so direction or copies of A there, and therefore the V monoid is simply the set of all isomorphic to the additive monoid of non-negative integers there. And if R and S are Morita equivalent, then the corresponding V monoids are shown to be isomorphic. Consequently, you can see, for instance, that if S is a ring of n by n matrices or a field, then the V monoid of S again is isomorphic to V monoid of K, and therefore is isomorphic to Z plus there. Okay. And notice that if you remove that zero element from this monoid, Of course, if the semigroup is closed addition there. And given a ring R, in general, it is not very easy to compute the V monoid. V monoids from which we construct the property groups. So it's important to know how to construct them here, but in general, it's not as easy. But Pere or Enrique Pablo, they found a way, a non-trivial way. This is what I would like to talk about. And that they introduced the concept of a monoid M sub E using the vertices of the graph here as follows. So starting with say row finite graph, we define that V monoid as follows, namely for every vertex V, you choose an element A sub V, and then you take the additive monoid generated by this set, okay? And call that as M sub B, which means that M sub B simply consists of all the integral linear combinations, finite linear combinations of form N1, AV1, and so on, NT A sub BC, that N sub I are non-negative integers there. And the relation subject to the following relation, which is similar to a CK2 relation. Namely, that's why I assume it's a row finite, so every vertex has only finitely many edges here. For each of these, you look at the range of that edge and the corresponding element A sub R E, add them up, that has to be equal to the element A sub B here. With that relation, we denote that monoid as M sub B. A quick example. See, for instance, if we take the graph with n roses, the n roses graph, the single vertex V, and if the loops are y1, y2, yn, then the M sub B is simply the set. Now there is only one vertex here, so you are adding up. So with that subjective relation, it is n times A sub B, that n runs over the set of all non-negative integers, and the relation is A sub B equal to n times A sub B. So which means this monoid consists of here 0, A sub B2, and then n minus 1 A sub B because of that relation. So, and if you remove 0, you see that normally if you have a monoid, if you remove the identity, the result will be only a semigroup. But here, in this case, it is a group here. And this is a characteristic property of infinitesimal Leavitt path algebras here. And we know already that the Leavitt path algebra of R sub n is infinite simple. So, and actually this was the main result of Pere and Pardo. They said if E is a row finite graph, then the V monoid of this Leavitt path algebra is always isomorphic to the M monoid M sub B. And calculation of the M monoid is much easier because you have vertices, you can manipulate them in comparison to the V monoid here. And not only that, there is an appropriate, it's a little complicated, so I'm not going to state that, an appropriate universal property, which means that if you have another algebra whose V monoid is isomorphic to the corresponding M monoid, in some additional condition, it has to be isomorphic to the Leavitt path algebra. Okay. So it's a very nice universal property. And further, we noted they are both characterized that if E is a finite graph, so that we need a multiplicative identity, then the corresponding Leavitt path algebra is purely infinitesimal, if and only if the M monoid and you remove the 0 becomes a group here. So it's a nice way of characterizing this. Further, we can compute, because our main aim is really the V monoid, And by making it isomorphic to M monoid, we can compute it by using this Smith-Normal form. Again, there's one more type, this E should be just like. Where A sub B is the adjacent matrix. Of course, this real deep result uses deep theorem of Bergman. But a consequence of this, for instance, if S is the Levittring 1, n, L, n, then the V monoid is simply as S squared S to the n minus 1, because it is like we get this information of the nature of the M monoid. And another consequence is, if the Levittring, there are two integers n and n prime, so that LK1n is isomorphic to LK1 n prime, then n must be equal to n prime here. So we can think of Leavitt path algebra in two ways. One as a portion of a path algebra. The other way is this way part of the result is the universal algebra, which supports ME as a V monoid. For these V monoid is isomorphic to M sub B here. Both these approaches are parallel, and certainly they complement each other in the investigation of Leavitt path algebra there. Okay. Now I'm going to indicate the relationship, some of the connections of Leavitt path algebras to C-star algebras. Okay. Now, since around year 2000, operator algebras have investigated the C-star algebra of a graph, associated graph E over the field of complex numbers. Of course, it all started with the important result of Delfont and Neumark, which said that every C-star algebra is isomorphically a closed star subalgebra of the algebra of all bounded linear operators on a Hilbert space H here. And so given that graph E, given graph E is then represented by means of the operators on this Hilbert space as follows. The vertices are represented by orthogonal projections denoted by the symbol PV. The edges are represented by partial isometries, again denoted by S sub V here. And the CK family, which means family satisfying CK1 and CK2 relations of operators, it consists of course, set of all these this many mutually orthogonal projections and a set of partial isometries S sub E satisfying these two relations. I didn't write in here. Then S sub E star is the adjoint operator of S sub E. In fact, this is how originally started when we said both edges, both we are imitating really the adjoint operators of the Hilbert space in dealing with Leavitt path algebras there. And there are some differences in notation though. In Leavitt path algebra, when we write an edge, for instance, if we have an edge, usually this vertex is called the source of E, and this will be the range of E. The graph C-star algebras, they do it in the opposite direction. For them, an edge, when they want to denote an edge, they do like that. So what that's my friend Astrid, she calls it a Southern Hemisphere convention. So it's but modulo that we can with appropriate notation with CK1, CK2 in mind, the C-star algebra, of course, all the field C, is generated by the CK family PS, and it will be the closure of the span of S mu star, and mu attacks. Of course, we want the range of mu must be equal to a range of u in here. For us, if you want to think of the relationship between the Leavitt path algebra over C with the corresponding C-star algebra is to consider the Leavitt path algebra over complex numbers as a span of S mu star, just the algebraic span, whereas it is embedded inside the closure of the span of this, which would be the corresponding C-star algebra in here. In some ways, it's nice because we can now look at the Leavitt path algebra over complex numbers as a subalgebra, and indeed it is closed under operators star, and it is a dense subalgebra in appropriate norm of the graph C-star algebra. So it is another way to look at it, bringing some connections between them, and indeed there are some connections. But there are also obvious differences. We'll talk of some of the obvious similarities first between these two. We assume a graph to be finite, for instance. Then, because here is a dense subalgebra, only graph algebra, C-star algebra here, when can these two coincide exactly? When, of course, the graph is finite, and secondly, when it is has no cycles here. Okay. So the differences comes only when you have cycles here. And for instance, again, look at our favorite graph of one vertex and one loop here. We know the Leavitt path algebra with complex numbers is a complex Laurent polynomial ring, and that is inside the corresponding C-star algebra, which is in this case turns out to be continuous functions on the unit circle here. And obviously, this is not; these two are not equal here. But usually, any C-star algebra has two hats, or you can view it as a ring. Or you can view in the ring theoretic structure of this C-star algebra A from a topological analytic point of view there. For example, we have looked at the algebraic simplicity of C-star algebra as a ring, meaning there are no non-zero ideals, just purely as an algebraic ring. But if you think of corresponding topological simplicity as a topological ring, it means it has no non-zero closed ideals. So we see a difference in that. You need to have that. And in general, these properties are different. However, for Leavitt path algebra, again, something special happens. Namely, the graph C-star algebras of a finite graph, they often do, and the property, they coincide with the corresponding algebraic properties of the corresponding Leavitt path algebra. Let me give an example here. For instance, algebraically, simplicity means no non-trivial two-sided ideals. Analytically, means no non-zero, non-trivial closed ideals. And no non-trivial closed ideals is these are repetition of it, sorry about it. So if Leavitt path algebra is simple, we know if and only if there are no proper hereditary saturated subsets, and the graph satisfies condition L, and its corresponding C-star algebra is topologically simple, exactly the same graph condition. That is the main driving point I want to follow. This first lecture is how the same graph conditions lead to the same similar condition modulos in topological algebra in Leavitt path algebra as well as the C-star algebra, but the proofs are different. One of it is analytic, the other is algebraic here. But the surprising fact that is single graph property implies both of them. As a quick example again, more emphasize the point, you can see for instance, if E is a finite graph, then the Levitt path algebra is simple, if and only if the corresponding C-star algebra is topologically simple, and if and only if the corresponding graph conditions holds here. And again, if you look at the B monoid, algebraically we know it is the isomorphism class. The monoid of isomorphism classes of projective modules with the appropriate operation defined analytically for operator algebra A. B sub M is the monoid of the monoid for non-maniculous classes of projections in this matrix ring. Eventually, omega cross omega matrix rings are finite matrix only there. And whenever A is a C-star algebra, the V monoid is always equal to the corresponding or isomorphic to the corresponding B sub MVN monoid A. And because of that, we have again a nice interesting result, an isomorphism between the various monoids, namely the graph monoid ME of a Levitt path algebra for a finite graph E is isomorphic to, of course, the V monoid of the Levitt path algebra, which is isomorphic to the V monoid of the corresponding C-star algebra. The crucial thing is the statement 2 and 3, they both are isomorphic, which is kind of really interesting. And of course, it's of course, we know theoretically it's isomorphic to V sub MVN of C-star in here. There are other properties for which the same graph conditions imply similar algebraic as well as corresponding analytical conditions, some of which I went through yesterday. For instance, purely infinite simple, the property of being exchanged. Remember, it's defined by the condition K. The same condition K defines the exchange property for C-star, graph C-star algebras. And likewise, primitivity, the downward directed does, and the condition L and the CSP for the same condition implies the similar property of graph. What I'm trying to drive home here is the following. Here are two different sets. Here is an analytical animal, here is an algebraic thing. But same graph property implies the same similar property. So unfortunately, the proofs, we have to go algebraically here and we have to go analytically here. What is lacking is some sort of a meta theorem. And hopefully one of you may come up with that. How to translate? This would be a wonderful, great project to be able to. That way you can translate problems in graph C-star algebras into Levitt path algebras, solve them algebraically, transfer back analytically. But we don't have any such things. Until that happens, what happens is we have two parallel proofs for the same kind of theorem here. But that's what's happening at the moment. That's the state of affairs now. But I also, of course, not always everybody goes the same way. I think I already mentioned, for instance, the gain of fairway graph, single vertex, the corresponding Levitt path algebra of this is a prime link. It's actually an interval domain, so it's a prime link here. But if you look at the corresponding C-star algebra, we know it is the ring of all continuous functions of the unit circle, and that is not an interval domain. I mean, that's not a prime link. So there are some minor changes there, but lots of places there are similarities, so which is really interesting, intriguing, I would say. And we have this, naturally this is a very natural question here. So we have two, if you give me two graphs, E and F, we have the Levitt path algebra of E, Levitt path algebra of F. It sits inside, I'm sorry, I'll put it over the complex numbers. So it is inside the corresponding C-star algebra of E, and this is inside the C-star algebra of F here. Now this is densely embedded in here. So one of the natural question is, suppose this as a red path algebra, these two are isomorphic. Can we extend it to an isomorphism of that? So that's a very natural question. It's an open question still. However, there are situations where you could get one of those recent results is when the set of vertices is finite, then you could, this question has an affirmative answer. And this is very recent, and this was done by strong reasons. For instance, it's appeared in the argument. So they are able to show that if the set of vertices is finite, then an isomorphism of the level path algebras of two graphs induces an isomorphism of the corresponding larger C-star algebra here. But what happens if you have infinite number of vertices, it is it's not known. Okay. I think almost I'd like to make it short today, this first section, so I'll have a little longer next time here. So these are some of the references as we did yesterday. We will have the copies of these slides later today. Okay. I think I'm going to stop for a moment. Thank you.
So are there any questions?
So this, on the last slide, the isomorphism of Leavitt path algebras, that doesn't involve any norm condition, right? So that should be a critical.
As an algebra, it's just algebra.
Exactly.
Nothing, we don't have any topology or anything there. Only thing we know it is dense. So it certainly inherits the topology by restricting the structure, the C-star algebra on it. Intuitively one would think, it's a dense, so it seems to be it can be extended to the closure, but there are obvious difficulties. Yeah, I think one of the main problems that embeds don't have a good control. How does it just arbitrarily do that? I mean, the embedding is really crucial.
Because for C-star algebras, it's a known fact that you have an isomorphism at algebraic level and it has to be a C-star isomorphism. But
as a C-star algebra, yeah, but here we don't know.
Exactly.
I didn't read this article yet, so I don't know really whether how they arrange. There are similar situations in other algebra, where you usually go by step, kind of, a little each, and then you extend it slowly. Here, I don't know how they got it. I didn't have a chance to read the paper there. But certainly it's an interesting and important first step in this.
And one more thing is, you stated all the theorems for monide. So is there a notion of K-theory and you extend those results?
Yeah, there are K-theory across. Are you going to talk about the yeah, for instance. And as I mentioned, in the case of purely infinite Leavitt path algebras of a certain kind, there are isomorphism in there. There is a powerful tool that C-star algebra is having, the so-called KP theorem, really powerful tool. We don't have as an algebraic version of that. That is the real they seem to use. And that's one is yet to be proved by hopefully one of you who knows. And that would be a great advancement in the isomorphism invariance problem, in the classification of Leavitt path algebras up to isomorphism by invariance.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, let's Thank Mr. Rangaswamy again. And we'll meet again at 10:30. The person who has the sheet. Yeah, okay, it's been resolved. Okay, fine. So if you still want to sign, please sign up for that heritage walk. And finally, Bruce Bay wants me to advise if you take photos. Oh, sorry. If you want to take photos, please send your photos for the competition to be judged by Bruce Bay. So I suppose we can continue with the next talk by Professor Rangaswamy, part 4, the last topic.
Okay. In this talk, I'm going to change subject. I'm going to talk about module theory of over Leavitt path algebras. And after that, just as an introduction, so we will try to describe the minimal rectangles inside the Leavitt path algebra, and also construct graph to show some methods of constructing simple modules, and look at Leavitt path algebras, the simple modules of special type. And then we look at some of the generalizations of the path algebras. Some of the investigate generalizing it, group points that will separation, that Leavitt path algebras of separation graphs, and the higher rank graphs, and non-field generalizations. The module, Leavitt path algebras, the module really is really infants, not much have been done at all. And there's not much information like, about one-sided ideal, for instance. Two-sided ideals, Mooney explained yesterday, some information, what are the generators, what are some of the properties, properties of graded ideals and non-graded ideals. And, some of those, as we see already, form a distributed values, all those nicely, but nothing, absolutely nothing is known other than minimal rectangles. It's not working. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. So the first step, we will describe the minimal one-sided ideals and and so on. So with that in mind, let's start with a definition. This notation was already mentioned by Pune yesterday. If there is a path from a vertex U to a vertex V, then write V greater than or equal to just remain the notation. There's no partial order. It's a free order, of course. And if you are given a vertex U, then some of you may know the tree of this vertex consists of all the other vertices V, so that U can reach V. U is greater, that is a path from U to V. So it's greater than or equal to V there. And if we have a path, finite or infinite, say P, with edges, made up of edges E1, E2, En, and so on, is a path has a bifurcation at a certain vertex. Let us say the source of the nth edge. Means simply there is another edge F coming out of it. So I have a path here, so as a bifurcation simply another edge coming out of this path. Okay. So the source of F equal to the source of En, but F is not equivalent. Just a quick example. For instance, there is a path U1, U2, U3, U4, and we have an extra edge coming out of the vertex V. This edge F is different from these three. Intuitive definition. In that case, of course, we say F is a bifurcation at the vertex U sub 3. I'm trying to introduce some graph properties to be able to describe the minimal left ideals in a Leavitt path algebra. So the first concept is what's called a line point, a vertex in a Leavitt path algebra, or vertex in a graph being a line point. Simply means that the tree, if V is a line point, if the tree of V contains no bifurcations and no cycles. So that is of course, tree of V consists of vertices. Essentially, they arrange themselves on a straight line segment. That's pretty. That may be a good way to visualize it. So a vertex is a line point means that well, there is a line segment coming out of it. There's nothing else. So the set of all vertices to which V is connected, they arrange themselves in a straight line segment here. There are no cycles coming in. There are no bifurcation coming in here. So loosely, you can say yes.
Can you have a bifurcation? Seems like you can have things going.
We can have things coming inside.
But it's not a.
That we don't. We are recognizing this as a tree, for instance, of this vertex. Let us say what we are saying is that from here there is no coming out of it, bifurcation, or there is no kind of cycle coming and joining. But it's possible and it's allowed. There are paths coming in, ending in here, or coming there. That's fine. But as far as tree is concerned, we are only looking at the vertices to which, in this example, the vertex is connected here. So loosely we say the tree is simply a line segment. So it's kind of even though the tree consists of only vertices, simply say line segment. Some example, you can see that any sink is a line point because the tree. A sink is one that no edges coming out of it. So the tree of a sink is simply the vertex itself. So trivially, it is a line point. And further, as you could see even from this example here, this is the tree of the vertex M1. The U2 is in this tree. So U2 is also a line point. Because anything to which U2 is connected, U1 is also connected there. So any vertex in the, if V is a line point, U is a line point, then any vertex V in that tree is also a line point here. Okay. And more importantly, if I have two vertices in the tree of a line point, for instance, V, U is a line point, if V is in the tree, and if P is a portion of the path connecting U to V, then the left triangle generated by U is isomorphic to the left triangle generated by V. Like, you know, what I'm trying to say here, here is this line, V1 is a line point, take V3, then the left triangle generated by U1 is isomorphic to the left triangle generated by U3, U4, U10, and so on. Okay? The ideal generated by left triangle generated, every one of these vertices, they are all mutually isomorphic. That's a nice property there. How do you get the isomorphism? Very easy. If P is the portion of the path that connects, in this case, U to V, so that P begins with U, therefore U times P is P. P ends in V, therefore P times P is P. So P is actually equal to U times P times P here. And then we get the isomorphism. Set any element A times U in LU to multiply it on the right by P, but AUP is anything as AUPV, so it's an element there. So this defines an isomorphism. We define it. And you could find inverse. Inverse is simply corresponding P star. So that's really kind of nice here. So already we have some isomorphic left triangles on our hand there. And one nice property about a line point is, if you look at its endomorphism ring of the left triangle generated by it. Of course, this gives an idempotent, therefore this isomorphism is always well known in any ring. It will be simply isomorphic to the corner, ULU, but in this case, because it's a line point show that is simply isomorphic to the field, the K there. You can kind of guess already, some of you know that Show's lemma, which implies a simple left triangle there. That's what we are heading towards here. So the theorem indicated by Valentino, using Spolina's, who we have this week, is that if a vertex V is a line point, then the left triangle generated, likewise the right triangle generated by it, is a minimal left triangle. It's probably a minimal right triangle, or probably simply some point here. And the converse is also true here. Let me just point out just a justification on it. That's how you get it. It's a fairly straightforward argument. Because suppose U is a line point, we'd like to show that L times U is a minimal left triangle. All I need is to show, give me any non-zero element, then the left triangle, say A, the left triangle generate L times A must be equal to L times U. That's what essentially we need to show. But let's know how you justify that. Because the Jacobson radical of a Leavitt path algebra is 0, come on, right? There are no nilpotent left triangles. So if you take this left triangle LA, then square of LA is not 0. So which means there is an element B in L, so that the square A times B times A, which is an element in here, is not 0. Then we simply define a map sending any element X in LU to X times BA. This is a non-zero endomorphism because in particular A times BA is not 0. And the previous lemma we noted the endomorphism ring is a field. So every non-zero endomorphism must be an automorphism. So it is an onto map, which means the element U, which is a which is the y will be a form y times dA, which should be inside A here. Therefore, Calvin must be showing that it is a simple left ideal or is a minimal left ideal here. And the converse is also true, but I won't go into details of that. Because it's an idempotent, it's a direct sum, and so it is a projective left ideal. If U is a line. As I mentioned, I think she's going to talk about software. Algebra. Software, as you know, is the sum of all the minimal one-sided ideals in a way. And we could show, and perhaps you will be showing, that the circle of a Leavitt path algebra is precisely the two-sided ideal generated by all the line forms. So it's geometrical connection to that. So we have here is one way of constructing left ideals, minimal left ideals here. So the next question is, likewise, since we are essentially taking baby steps in some sense in the module theory. First thing would be, I want to describe some information about module. The simplest of the module is the simple module. So can we have some way graphically construct, indicate methods of constructing simple modules? So I would like to at least indicate how in the case of Leavitt path algebras have some nice graphical techniques that helps us. So then an infinite path was simply like any path is an infinite sequence of edges going further where the range of E sub I is the source of E sub I plus A. Yeah? And what we are trying to do, we are going to manufacture a simple module from an infinite path. That's our first method. So, with that in mind, we are going to define some sort of an equivalence relation, certain types of infinite path. So let's have this notation. So if you have an infinite path P, then for every n, say P is simply E1, E2, E7, and so on. For each positive integer n, you define tau sub less than or equal to n of P to be simply, you chop off the first n position here. The finite path consisting of the first n edges here. Okay. And you look at the leftover, the truncated infinite path, starting with En cross 1, En cross 2, and so on. You denote it by the symbol tau sub greater than n of P here. Okay. So with that notation, we can define an equivalence relation between two infinite paths here. Namely, two infinite paths P and Q are tail equivalent in symbols is P tilde Q if the tail if there exists integers m and n such that tau greater than n of P equal to tau greater than m of P. So that's easy to visualize. So it's an infinite path here. This one with the three edges here, then this will be So this path I can call it P, And this Q here, P and Q are example for Taylor equivalent paths here. The beginning may be different, but at a certain point onwards, they are identical. Now this certainly is an equivalence relation. And the equivalence class containing an infinite path, the Taylor equivalence class, it is denoted by a symbol square bracket of P there. And you could see, if C is a cycle, you can also get an infinite path. Keep on repeating it. You still satisfy the condition of the infinite path. We call it suggestively a rational path. On the other hand, if you have another cycle, say just touching C, we could we'll just do the circle, it's touching the cycle, one touching. So this is C, this is D. Think of them as, I just put circles here, you can think of them as so you get the idea here. This is the vertex, let us say V. I have one edge coming out of it. And so on. So I can generate an infinite path by, I can go 2 times this way, come back, 2 times this way, come back. So I can keep on generating an infinite path by using the various powers of so if D is another cycle, just touching it at the vertex, so I can use the example. Then we can construct a path Q, say C, there is a one way, C followed by D, then C squared, D squared, and so on. This obviously is not Taylor equivalent to that, because after a certain portion, this keeps on repeating. If something is going to be, how will a path which will be Taylor equivalent to this? Initially there may be variation, but after some time it has to repeat C, and so on, like this is not here. So this certainly is irrational path, doesn't get repeated there. Okay. So the idea of constructing a simple model is the following. Here essentially, sometimes if you want to use a high-sounding word, it has been used is irreducible representation of a path. We are actually representing it by means of anamorphisms on a vector space. So that to get that representation, this is how we do it. We take all the paths, you take a one infinite path, P, and let V sub square bracket P denote the set of all infinite paths Q, which are Taylor equivalent to P. So you denote that set as B, and then you take the vector space having this as a basis over the field K denoted by the symbol. So V sub P is a K vector space having the set of infinite paths Q, which are Taylor equivalent to P as a basis here. And then we are going to define a linear transformation, because we don't have a representation. So we are going to define linear transformations. So far, given any vertex U, we define a linear transformation P sub U. Any edge E, S sub E, and E star, S sub E star. These are linear transformations and defined as follows. for instance, all I need, in order to define linear transformation of this vector space, all I need is to know how it acts on the basis here. So if you choose for all paths P, take a path P in here, then P sub u of P is simply equal to P if the beginning vertex of P is, the source of P is u, otherwise it is 0.
This is for some P in the equivalence graph.
Yeah, it's a bad notation. I should have put Q.
Some
I
Q
should have
in.
put Q in here. So if we choose any Q here, P sub u of Q is simply itself if the beginning vertex is u, otherwise it's 0. Okay? And likewise, that's a bad word. C sub e of Q would be E times Q if the range. So if I have a path, infinite path, this example, E here, we are looking at the edge E. If the edge E happen to end in V, if the range of E is V, then if we call this a Q, then P sub E of Q would be simply adjoint to the longer. Otherwise, it is 0. Okay? Otherwise, if this edge E does not end in here, then P sub E of Q will be 0. And likewise, for S of E star, S of E star, again of Q, if E happens to be the first edge of Q, like for instance in this case, in this infinite path, let us say Q, the first edge itself is E, then S of E star of Q is simply from this point on. So that if it's the beginning edge, so Q I can write as E times Q prime, where Q prime is this infinite path, then S sub E star of P would be equal to Q prime. Otherwise, if it is on the initial edge of Q, then S sub E star is 0. So this is a defined function. It generates a linear transformation. Each one of them is an extensive linear transformation. And what's interesting is that these satisfy. So these endomorphism, P sub u, S sub E star, they satisfy the defining relation of another pathological. Right? Importance, all those CK1, CK2 relations satisfied. So here is a subring of endomorphisms of a vector space. They satisfy, they're generated by elements corresponding to the vertices and edges of a graph, and they satisfy the same kind of relation as the Leavitt path algebra of the graph here. Consequently, we will get a homomorphism from the Leavitt path algebra of this graph to this subring generated by which is inside the endomorphism of this vector space. And so if I call this map as phi, so you could see that this vector space, V sub p, you can think of as a module over this ring or the endomorphism ring, and there is a homomorphism from this ring to this endomorphism ring. Therefore, via this homomorphism, we can make this as a module. In other words, if I take an element R here, and if I take an element, say for all element A in V sub p, and for all elements R in the Leavitt path algebra, how do you define R times A? Given R, you apply V. So V of R here lands in here, which is an endomorphism. Therefore, you act this endomorphism on that. This makes this vector space V sub P as a module over the level path algebra. And what's interesting is this was pointed out by Professor Chen. He showed that under this action of LV over this vector space, it becomes a simple left module over here. So it's kind of a nice way of constructing. So all you need to construct a simple module is you need an infinite path and infinite path. Not only that, he showed that when we'll do such constructed simple modules are isomorphic, so V sub P and V sub Q is isomorphic, even only if they are tailored here. So it's kind of a nice, up to isomorphism, we are able to determine one class of simple modules. And it's just an infinite path, but you remember I can also start with a cycle. So, because if I have a cycle, then I could do the repetition here. So, in other words, what I want you to think in mind here, every cycle in a graph automatically gives rise to a simple module by following the same line here. So, it's so kind of a nice, from a graph point of view, if you're looking at a graph way of constructing, it's a fairly satisfying situation. And that's what essentially I mentioned here. And of course, the proof is easy because if C is an arbitrary cycle, you consider a rational path, C, and so on. And look at the vector space V sub P, or set of all paths. In that case, how do they look like? I mean, essentially, various paths that ending in that cycle. They become part of that, right? Because if I have a cycle, say, and if I have we simply take various paths that end of these cycles here. The totality will be this in path followed by infinite many of them will be one infinite path and so on.
I have a question. So I'm a bit confused on notation. V sub P is the vector space spanned by the basis equivalence classes of paths?
No, paths in one equivalence.
One equivalence class.
Yeah. So every.
Okay. So you
like in this example,
one. Finitely many equals, or you can take the sum over all of that thing and have the same action and
sum over
decompose into submodules. You take the sum over all equivalence classes.
Equivalence classes, yes. Yeah. But for a simple module, we simply take one equivalence class. For a semi-simple, it takes some. Simple, just one class is enough. So every such class, which is equivalent, every infinite path up to equivalence, give rise to. So there will be as many simple modules as there are equivalence classes of infinite paths in there. So that's certainly one way of constructing simple modules there. Yes?
Again, I was not familiar with. Suppose you take the complex numbers, then you have this would give some sort of a space, complex space.
Yeah.
What is that got to do with the C? This looks like your C-star algebra should be operators in some Hilbert space, right?
Oh, yeah.
And these, I'm guessing it's PU, SC, and so on, are again satisfy the same properties as C-star algebra.
Oh, yes.
So
if you take a graph C-star algebra,
and then
you are taking
Yeah, what is this with respect to the Gauss-Seeser algebra? And
That's a good question. What would be the corresponding construction would give rise to in the case of, and what connection would that be? Is that your question?
so whether you get some sort of, if you take, I mean, I guess, whether you get some sort of Hilbert space of this construction.
You could certainly repeat the same thing. The only thing I'm not sure about is the algebraic thing that be enough? I don't know whether he needs some other topological.
Yeah, it's finite.
Whether, like, this map has to be continuous and other things they may, perhaps. I don't know.
Like Verma module.
This goes very close.
Converting Verma module.
Yeah.
Operator. So you look at integers, you look at the operators he has defined. The first operator is basically projection. His scaling point factor. So that's projection. So you look at the shift by 1 on the natural numbers. So that's like killing the first sequence. So you look at the sequences, so you kill the first part.
Composite of operators, you just kill the first of the composition.
When he is defining SE, he is making shift by 1. And when he is putting SE star, then it's adjoint of this shift by 1. So that basically is very close to the shift operator on L2 of S1, I would say. So, and because of that, this operator is basically Pune's algebra generator for L2 of S1. So this is not directly related with C-star algebra, but it's more like that Vn is L2, that operator is shift operator, and that endomorphism is given by the Pune's algebra. So that later part is not C-star algebra, it's basically Hilbert space. And that operator gives an irreducible space, so that is where he is getting this simplicity of that is a concrete analytical model.
Do you get simplicity with that concept? I don't know. Here is a purely algebraic, very easy argument, really.
So analog of the algebra generated by this is, I forgot its name, it has a very classic name.
Yeah, sorry.
So the operators which are generated by such shifts, they have a very specific name, I forgot, and they have certain uniqueness. So I think it should be.
They are essentially shift operators, kind of.
Yeah, because you see
that.
so if you look at your construction, the first operator is basically projection, second one is shift by one vertex, and this SE star is its conjugate. So if you look at L1 of L2 of S1 and assume it's generated by this natural numbers index by taking a Fourier transform, then the first operator will be, you take this Fourier Fourier expansion of a function in L2, and you send this function to the one where you kill the first factor, you put 0 there and you start sequence from the second onwards. The operator SE will send this Fourier to shift 1. So like you start your sequence from 0 and the sequence the way it is. And adjoint of this in Hilbert module will be the operator SE star, which is given there. So this phi is basically that representation. And that's why he is getting that it satisfies those conditions for Leavitt algebra, because it's shift operator, it satisfies those conditions. So that is, I think, analytical analog.
And if you want to generate lots of non-isomorphic irreducible representation of simple model, there is one way. If you have 2 cycles and they touch, then like the example said, you would get, even if the graph is finite, 2 to that of non-isomorphic representations. Basically, just a quick argument. Suppose P is, so we have 2 cycles, G and H, have a common vertex, B. Then you look at the infinite rational part P, which is there of G repeated itself. And I want to construct just by manipulating P, 2 to the power of not many paths which are not equivalent to P. So for convenience sake, we kind of index them by integers. Let write P as C1, C2, C3, where each Cn really is with G for all positive integers. Then, and for every non-empty subset of which, just arbitrarily pick a subset of positive integers, and the integers belong to that at those places, you replace G by H. And you know there are 2 to the L naught subsets of positive integers, so certainly you get 2 to the L naught many simple modules. But the question is that not all of them may be, some of them may be isomorphic. Now, but how many, if we start one of them, apply this argument, how many paths can there be which will be tail equivalent to a fixed infinite path? You see that to make something tail equivalent, all you need is the head, is the initial path. Finitely many, they can differ. But at the end, it's not here. So at the end, so the end point, so the choices are at most countable. So among the among the 2 to the L now, meaning each equivalence class, given one member, the number of paths equivalent, shade equivalent, the given path is only countable at the most. Each equivalent, therefore, there will be 2 to the L naught non-isomorphic. So it's a cute idea. Just 2 cycles touching each other gives you lots and lots of theorems representation, which is kind of a nice graphical idea. I already went through that. Okay. But what happens if 2 cycles do not touch? Particularly go to the other extreme. Here there exist 2 cycles which touch. Suppose you consider the case there are no 2 cycles touch each other. Even in the finite graph case, you get a really nice description of Leavitt path algebras having really interesting properties here. So these I would like to just share with them. We're not prove that up here. This is a work here by Aaron and myself here. Suppose E is a finite graph, then the following are equivalent for a Leavitt path algebra. Namely, distinct cycles are disjoint. Cycles don't touch each other. Okay? It's a finite graph. Then every simple module we can actually classify them. What are the different types of simple modules we can create to determine them? They are essentially one of 3 types. Either they will be isomorphic to a minimal left ideal in the Leavitt path algebra, they are related by a line point, or it could be isomorphic to the corresponding some cycle and the rational path P obtained by repeating the cycle G, 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 and so on. That is this. Or it will be isomorphic to this with a little bit of twisting action. Or I'm going to details of it. I just want to point out how, in this case, there are essentially 3 ways of constructing simple models. It's really interesting in the finite case. And there are lots of other properties besides. You can actually use a bijection between primitive ideals, which are annihilated simple modules, and simple modules. See, in general, just because 2 simple modules are annihilated by the same primitive ideals, they need not be isomorphic. So this is kind of powerful here. So distinct simple modules are determined by distinct primitive ideals. The last one is kind of just throw an interesting, I won't go into details of it. Well, let me mention this. Every simple module will be finally presented, and the last one is the growth of, you can actually measure the growth of its polynomial growth. So the GK dimension, the corresponding dimension of this Leavitt path algebra is finite. So it's really interesting. Just this one graph property implies a lot of nice properties of the path algebra here. Mugekulun yesterday showed that if every two-sided ideal is graded in Leavitt path algebra, then if and only if the condition K holds here. Since we are now looking at the one-sided thing, so the natural question is, what happens if every one-sided item, Leavitt path algebra, is graded here? Again, this can be answered here. And in this case, it is also equivalent to every simple module is a graded module here. And this is the thought that has that result. And it says that if E is an arbitrary graph, then we have the following. Every simple module is graded the same thing as every left ideal is graded if only the graph has no sides. Again, that's a nice interesting property from the same graph. Now there are generalizations of path algebra, and we quickly go through just outline them. Some of them, I think, other speakers in the next week may be talking about them. One other way is what happens in the definition of Leavitt path algebra. You remove the CK2 conditions here, and these are called the cone path algebras, and they have been investigated also. Another thing is you only impose CK2 condition on a specified subset of regular vertices, and these are called relative cone path algebras. They have been discussed also, and another concept is so-called separator graph. There they are. We will be going to talk about it in the next week here. Remember in the CK2 parallel, just give a quick outline of what it is. In our definition of CK2 relation, what we are saying is that if you give me a regular vertex B, you take single, and then suppose M is finitely many edges here, then the B must be equal to sum of this, finite sum of E star. Okay? In the case of separator thing, what they do is simply you take all the edges emanated by each, and then you partition it arbitrarily. You can have arbitrary partition. One partition has 2, the other is 5, and so on. And then you impose the CK2 relation and individuate these subsets here. Like for instance, if V, here is a plus V, elements E1, E2, let's say is 10, and then you partition this with E1, E2, say union E3 to E6, union E7 to E10. Then what you do, you impose the condition that E1, E1 star plus E2, E2 star must be equal to V. E3, E3 star through E6, E6 star, that sum must be equal to V. And E7, E7 star through E10, E10 star must be. So you have more relations. So you separate them out in here. It leads to some interesting properties of the corresponding path algebras. And of course, that's what this definition is in here, essentially. And they are denoted by the symbol S of K of E comma C. C really denotes the partition set. There are some advantages of looking at this. One of the, for instance, somebody asked me the other day, because Leavitt started to define the Leavitt ring L, M, N. We only showed that L1, N is a Leavitt path algebra. But M comma N cannot be realized as Leavitt path algebra, but you can realize it as an algebra of a separated graph here. So that's that here. And there are some properties is that this separated path algebra is always Morita equivalent to this LKM value here. So it's even though it's not a Leavitt path algebra, it's a Morita equivalent of that. I'm hoping Professor will talk about it here. The other one is we always assume the base is the algebra is over a field decay. And there are papers generalizing it by replacing the field decay by a commutative linear activity. And there are obviously some restrictions are needed, but that investigation is also going on. It started by Tom Ford. I have this reference at the end of the paper if you want. But not all of them go through the simplicities theorem as one of the places where you need to adjust the conditions. The another approach is the group-wide approach of Professor Clark. We'll be talking about it next week in here. A group-wide one way, there are a lot of different ways of defining it. This is more category mixing morphism. Every morphism has an inverse. A topological group-wide is a group-wide in which the underlying set is equipped with a topology in which both the product is a proposition and the inverse functions are continuous. Those here is the composable morphism or even the topology induced by the product topology there. In 2010, Ben Steinberg introduced for any topological group on G satisfying various additional topological conditions, the house dog and apple and so on. And for any competitive unitary ring, it didn't need a field. Unitary ring K, the K algebra on the groupoid interesting property. And when he was doing it, Professor Clark and colleagues were working on it. Actually, they perhaps done independently of each other, but they were generous of them. They called this as a Steinberg algebra in his honor. It should have been perhaps a different name in my opinion. But anyway, I turned out everybody calls it as a Steinberg algebra. And I'm hoping she will be able to talk about it in the next week here. And finally, there is a website maintained by Professor Tom Ford, where he has been listing various open problems in both in graphs, system algebras, and also in Leavitt path algebras. And interested people can look them up in here. And I think my notes will have all this information in the very later. That's been a great pleasure for me to talk to you all. Thank you for putting up with me for 2 days. Really enjoyable experience for me. I hope you get an idea of this developing area of research. Hopefully get interested in working. And I'll be more than happy afterwards also in the future. You may need have any questions or references. And thank you all for that. These are the references. And thank you.
So are there any questions? No.
So when you talked about the left ideals, most of the time we are talking about principal ones. Are they all principal? The left ideals that occurred.
Where? Which?
I think the minimal ones were principal.
Yes.
But there are non-principal left ideals also, I guess.
Oh yeah, but we don't know much anything about it other than the one property that if every left ideal is greater, we know we have some information. That's what is lacking. Professor Pune's talk, she actually gave a generators. Actually, you can find a generating set for a two-sided idea, not two-sided idea. But I do not know. As I said, it's just they're taking baby steps on the one-sided aspect. Nothing is known. I mean, when I say known, what I really mean is how can we have some graphical conditions which should enable us to describe information about, say, a cyclic module or injective module or injective overlap. So many questions from module theory point of view one could ask. When will every finitely generated module is the direction of cyclic modules or other pattern? Things like that for a general non-competitive ring have been extensively developed, but we don't have any. Yes?
Yeah, Professor. For the theorem 6, for finite graphs, we have the classification for the simple models. So for any graph, do we have the classification for simple models?
Not for any graph. No, we don't know much about it. These are only some. Because of the special nature, these cycles, disjoint, we are able to. This was really a initial idea by Professor Chen, really nice. And then, of course, you can be able to recognize that there are no more other than this right here. But the finiteness is very much needed here. If there are infinite, we have a few more new types of simple module, but it does not exhaust all the simple modules that we were able to do in the case of finite. Sorry, Simon?
I was just wondering about that left L module VP that you created out of an infinite part.
Yes.
Is there like an intuitive explanation for why that's simple? Or is it, I don't know, it just seems quite surprising.
I could show an argument here. It's very simple manipulation of the path. All you need is, like we did in the previous case, to show something a module is simple, because in this case we are relating to the infinite path P. All I need is to show if you choose an arbitrary element in the simple module, it contains P, it generates the whole thing. So the argument is you write down as a linear combination of members. And remember, I could go with you later on, but basically I'll just give you the idea at least, because we are trying to show this is a simple module. Remember, elements here are linear combination. If I have an element A, how will that look like? A would be equal to, say, K1 times Q1 dot Kn times Qa, where each path Qi it belongs to in this class. So it is Taylor Qli2, which means after some point they are identical. So because of the idea is very simple, we will take just two cases, let us say. So if we take this one path, Q comes in, and then here is another path, comes in. I'm thinking of the left idea. All I need is like one of those relations, and multiply them, knocking them out to become this path. Can you see that, for instance, if this is V1, this is E2, let me call this path as Q1, then you could see that E2 star, E1 star of Q1 is essentially this path, and we call it P by defining the relation. Likewise, this one is, if you say it is F1, F2, or F3, and if I call this as Q2, then you could see knockout. Essentially, the idea is simply multiply by enough those paths so that in product, the resulting thing is essentially this part in here. So for instance, F2, F3 star, F2 star, F1 star, or of Q2, because of the way we have defined, this would be essentially, this would be P. So all I need is effectively, if you multiply A on the left by the composite of E1 star, E2 star, E2 star, E1 star followed by that, effectively this will become ultimately after some multiplication of A itself, some multiplication of that will be the part times A will be essentially the sum of p's, the scalar times p in here. So that's kind of idea. And because it's a left ideal, all I need is to show that the left ideal generated by A is the whole submodule. That's kind of idea, but I can give you the details.